The Crucible of 1943. When the tide of war began to turn. A compelling narrative of courage, sacrifice, and the relentless pursuit of victory during World War II's most pivotal year. The weight of tomorrow. The squadron commander's words cut through the morning air like shards of ice. Go get some sleep because you're flying tomorrow. For the young airmen gathered in that briefing room, those simple words carried the weight of destiny. When the curtains were pulled back to reveal their target deep in the heart of Nazi Germany, they understood the stark mathematics of war. Success would be measured not by how many returned, but by whether even one aircraft could complete its mission. This was 1943, the year when World War II balanced on a knife's edge. After 4 brutal years of conflict, neither victory nor defeat seemed certain. The war had become a global crucible, testing the resolve of nations and the courage of individuals in ways history had never witnessed. The fortress without a roof. Nazi-occupied Europe had earned its ominous nickname, Fortress Europe. From the Atlantic Wall's concrete bunkers to the industrial heartland of Germany, Hitler's empire seemed impregnable. Propaganda minister Joseph Goebbels rallied his people with chilling rhetoric. Do you want a total war? Do you want it even more total and radical than we are capable of imagining it today? Yet as British strategists observed with grim satisfaction, every fortress has a weakness. Fortress Europe, for all its ground-based defenses, had no roof. The skies above remained contested territory, and it was there that the Allies would wage their campaign to bring Germany to its knees. The aerial war demanded extraordinary courage from young men like Tennessee Airman John Luckadoo. Flying through temperatures of 50 to 60 degrees below zero, these crews faced a gauntlet of German anti-aircraft guns and Luftwaffe fighters. The sound of shrapnel ricocheting through their aircraft became a deadly symphony, punctuated by the sight of comrades' planes spiraling earthward in flames. It's not surprising that some guys crack under that kind of strain, Luckadoo reflected years later. The fear and the trauma of combat could turn your hair white. I saw that happen over and over. Breaking the Southern Gate. While bombers pounded Germany from above, Allied forces sought to crack Fortress Europe from below. The victory in North Africa had opened tantalizing possibilities. Italy lay just across the Mediterranean, offering a potential southern gateway into Hitler's domain. Maurice White, a young American soldier, found himself part of the massive invasion force that would test this theory. As his landing craft approached the Sicilian shore, the sight of ships stretching to every horizon filled him with both awe and apprehension. You're naturally afraid because you don't know what to expect, really, he recalled. The Italian campaign revealed the complex nature of this global conflict. While many Italian soldiers, weary of Mussolini's war, surrendered readily with white flags raised high, the human cost remained devastating. Civilians like Anna, who had to steal bread to feed her family, embodied the suffering of ordinary people caught in the machinery of war. The fighting was brutal and personal. White remembered a German machine gunner who, despite being blinded by shrapnel with his eyeballs hanging on his cheeks, continued firing at Allied positions. Such moments stripped away any romantic notions of warfare, revealing its raw, desperate reality. The Pacific Crucible. Halfway across the world, another young warrior faced his own baptism by fire. 17-year-old Joe Veracine from California approached the tiny atoll of Tarawa with the confidence of youth and the imagery of Hollywood war films. In my mind, I was thinking like in the movies, he remembered. The ramp was going to come down. We were going to run up on a beach. Reality shattered those illusions within seconds. The water around their landing craft erupted with bullets as 5,000 Japanese defenders, having survived the preliminary bombardment, unleashed hell upon the Marines. The first man out of Varacine's boat was hit in the neck. The sergeant who tried to help him caught a bullet in the head. The Battle of Tarawa became a microcosm of Pacific warfare's savage intensity. Of the 5,000 Japanese defenders, only 17 survived to surrender. More than 1,000 Americans died taking the small island. Yet for Veracine, the experience taught a profound lesson about the nature of courage and humanity in war. They were people, he said of his Japanese enemies. They had mothers and fathers, like we have mothers and fathers. We fight for our country, right or wrong. They fought for their country, right or wrong. As far as I'm concerned, they were brave. The moral complexity of total war. As 1943 progressed, the conflict's moral dimensions became increasingly complex. Churchill's decision to target German civilians marked a turning point in the aerial campaign. The reasoning was coldly strategic. If military targets proved too difficult to destroy, perhaps crushing civilian morale would achieve the same end. The bombing of Hamburg demonstrated the terrible logic of total war. 14-year-old Günter Lux had dismissed RAF leaflets warning civilians to evacuate as mere propaganda. When 787 heavy bombers arrived under cover of darkness, dropping 1,000 tons of incendiaries, they created a firestorm that killed 45,000 people, including Günter's brother. For bomber pilot Don Wickens, the moral weight of such missions proved almost unbearable. When briefed to bomb emergency shelters housing 60,000 Hamburg civilians, he and his crew were sickened by their orders. "We just closed our eyes and said, oh, and they're the bad guys, and here we were, the good guys, and we've got to do this?" The bombing campaign's unintended consequence became clear in young Günter's response. Rather than breaking German morale, the destruction of his city and the death of his brother filled him with hatred for the Allies and determination to fight. "I want to do my job to prevent Germany's downfall," he declared, signing up for military service despite his mother's pleas. The Italian Crucible. The battle for Italy continued to exact its toll throughout 1943. The German defensive line at Cassino, anchored by the ancient monastery of Monte Cassino, became a symbol of the war's tragic ironies. Allied forces, convinced that German artillery observers were directing fire from the abbey, faced an agonizing decision. Despite President Roosevelt's initial prohibition against bombing religious sites, military necessity eventually overruled cultural preservation. The monastery, which had stood for centuries as a beacon of learning and faith, was reduced to rubble in a matter of hours. The tragedy was compounded by a crucial intelligence failure. No German soldiers had been stationed in the abbey. The only casualties were Italian civilians who had sought shelter in its basement. As one German defender noted bitterly, they achieved nothing. Nothing. The price of liberation. By year's end, the Allies had achieved significant victories. Rome fell, Mussolini was overthrown, and Italy switched sides. In the Pacific, American forces had begun their island-hopping campaign toward Japan. The bombing campaign against Germany continued relentlessly. Yet these victories came at an enormous cost, measured not just in lives lost, but in moral compromises made. The war had revealed both the heights of human courage and the depths of human brutality. Young men like Luckadoo, who understood they were fighting for freedom and liberation, carried the weight of missions that challenged their fundamental beliefs about right and wrong. The year 1943 marked the moment when the tide of war began to turn, but it also demonstrated that victory in total war requires a willingness to embrace tactics that would have been unthinkable in peacetime. The airmen who flew through flak-filled skies, the soldiers who stormed defended beaches, and the civilians who endured bombing raids all became part of a vast human drama that would reshape the world. As these veterans would later reflect, the war demanded everything of those who fought it, not just their lives, but their innocence, their certainty about moral absolutes, and their faith in the clean distinctions between heroes and villains. In the crucible of 1943, they discovered that victory sometimes requires good people to do terrible things, and that the price of freedom is measured not just in blood, but in the weight of memories that would haunt them for the rest of their lives.